we rule the cricket world. Now the rule seems coming.
Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. My voice has gone. I'm down horrendous right now, but the show must go on. Santokie, I can't even do my normal intro. I don't know if you can tell by my voice, but after 5 matches of waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning, Santokie, I am finished out here.
Yeah, round of applause for Mash, because it's been a valiant effort, 3 a.m. Obviously, you were rewarded with that Gabba win. And as ever with West Indies, karma hit you for the ODI series. Culminated in Mash being up at 3 in the morning to witness that 86 all out, down bad, horrendous. I woke up at 7 a.m. this morning. I put on the TV. I said, they were showing boxing. I said, where's the cricket? What's happened to the cricket? It finished about 2 hours before. West Indies were down bad. We lost 3-0 to Australia. Australia, they're the world champions. We're not that great at ODI cricket, as evidenced by the fact we didn't make the World Cup. However, as symbolic, West Indies always giving sides the best day of their life. 86 all out. Do you know what? The 86... It's the chase. I was just about to get onto that. Like 86, it's hard to stomach. But it wasn't even rain affected. When a team's chasing it down in under 7 overs, you're telling me, imagine, you're Australian, you go to pay to watch 100 over match, and you got one team chasing it in 6.5 overs. Do you know how mad that is? No rain, no affected. It was a full allocated 50 over match. And Australia, they said, listen, West Indies are down. We're going to kick them while they're down. They ain't getting back up. So the streak continues. The last time West Indies won an ODI, as the commentary team was ever so quick to remind us every hour, was 1997. That record goes on. One small consolation for West Indies fans is we probably won't have to go to Australia for ODIs for at least 5 years, maybe 10 years after this performance. There's no World Cups coming up in Australia, ODI World Cups. So we're just going to have to put this behind us. Players fly back, take that long flight back, the ODI guys. Take that long flight back to reflect on what's occurred on this tour, and we move T20 starting on Friday.
The thing is, Santokie, we have to let's start here. Our expectations when we saw the ODI squad that Desi announced, we knew the squad was shit, right? Respectfully, and again, like obviously, some of the players will watch this and they'll say, "Mash, stop calling us shit," and so on and so forth. But like, on paper, the squad looked awful. Even with Australia played what they ended up playing, which was a B side, or like the kind of more of the kind of lesser tier players who are trying to break through, right, and trying to put their name in the limelight. We knew that it would be pretty much nigh on impossible for the West Indian squad that was selected to compete with them. What I want to find out from you, Santokie, is if I just read the results again. First ODI. West Indies batted first, made 231 in 48 overs, right? Australia chased the winning total in 38 overs. They won with 12 overs to spare. That felt bad enough. Like, that one was kind of like, you know what? Like, we're going to have to just take that L because clearly there's a gap in standard between the two sides. That was actually a massive L, like a massive, massive defeat. But it felt like an acceptable one, which reflected the gap in standards between the two sides. The second one was our best performance of the 3 matches. We restricted Australia to 258 for 9 in 50 overs. Ideally, that should have been a far better scoreline than it suggested, because at one point, Australia were 167 for 7. But in keeping with traditional West Indian standards, we gave a player the best day of their life. And this time it was Sean Abbott. We gave him the best day of his life. And then as soon as Australia got over 200, anybody who was down bad and up at early hours in the morning knew, yeah, we've lost this. Everyone knew because of the nature of the pitch. everyone knew we ain't making 200 on that pitch. And in the end, we made, what did we make? We were bowled out for 175, never got close and lost by 83 runs. But again, in the context of the gap in quality between the two sides, it felt like we just, you know what, we'll have to just take that. It's not impressive, but we'll take it because of the gap in quality. Then we got to the third one, Santokie. And I'm loath to say it. But having been up since, I haven't even gone to bed yet, having been up since 3:30 in the morning, I've been up for time today, Santokie. My voice is gone, my eyes are stinging, right? I can't help but feel the players threw it away today. Not match fixing threw it away, but just didn't apply themselves. Too many of the dismissals today felt like these guys aren't even trying. Like they're not even trying their best. They've just thrown it in. And I mean, I think you tweeted some stats. So I don't have our tweet handle up right now. You may have it, but you tweeted some stats and we set records today. We broke records for the size of the L today. So let's not try and sugarcoat this one and say, but you know, it's the gap in quality between the Australians and the West Indians. This was still embarrassing. In fact, this was humiliating, even in the context of taking a down bad side to Australia. We still managed to humiliate ourselves beyond the accepted standard of humiliation. Oh my God.
Yeah, so this defeat was by 259 balls, which is the biggest in West Indies ODIs. But funny enough, the previous biggest was Australia when we scored 70 all out against Australia in 2013, and they chased it down in 9 overs. So they chased the total down, a higher total down today in 6.5 overs. So it's record breaking. It's record breaking out here. But Machel, I agree with what you said. The first two,
what's wrong with them, Santokie? What's actually wrong with them?
But you know what? You know it was bad because even Barbados, man, they broke down. They broke down. Did you see Justin Greaves and was it Austin Chase when they had the run out and Greaves was just cussing out?
No, Matthew Ford.
Yeah, Matthew Ford. That was it. Matthew Ford just cussing, man. That just summed it up for me. Like no communication, not any harmony in the team. Just everything a mess. It was a poor run out, man. That was today, like you said, Mash. It just felt like in a non-match fixing way, they just threw it away as if like we're 2-0 down. We're in Australia. What else can we do? We're just gonna wave the white flag, and they sort of gave out. And it was disappointing, Mash. But I guess if we're gonna look at one small consolation, one positive, someone you've talked about on previous pods needs that run of games, ODI games. Casey Carty scored 88 in the first ODI, batting at 3, and then in logical fashion, Mash, in the second ODI he went down to 5. The only rationale I can think of is they put that 3 position for a young up-and-coming Keorn Otley, who is making his name in world cricket. They gave him that, so promising talent in the region, given number 3, but it didn't make any sense, Mash. You got Casey Carty hitting a great 88. It was good partnership with Austin Chase in that first ODI, and then you're moving him next ODI down to 5. Well, where was the logic there?
Desi, if you're listening to this one, Desi, I need Desi, I need Roland Butcher, I need whoever else was involved in selecting Keorn Otley to now come out and explain the rationale that they used to pick Keorn Otley. I've got nothing against Keorn Otley. Keorn Otley was the 3rd highest run scorer in last year's Super 50. So on paper, you could argue Keorn Otley deserved to go to get into the ODI side. They selected him, Santokie, and said, well, that when they selected him for the England series, let me break this down and show people why you've always got to hold people to account and question their decision making. When they selected Keorn Otley, they said that Justin Graves was injured and therefore they needed a backup opener. And I think for the England series, it was Athanasian King. And Otley went as a backup opener. In the same sentence, Desi said, we're doing youth man policy. We're building to 2027. That's why Bravo's not in. Everyone naturally said, but hold on, Otley's going to be 34, the same age as Bravo. So how does that reflect youth man policy? So let me get to Australia, Santokie. King declines to go because he's playing, I think, Bangladesh Premier League. And Otley still keeps his spot. Justin Graves comes back. And I'm saying all this, Santokie, for you to try and explain it to me. When Otley then gets his debut, he doesn't even debut, or no, re-debut because he played in Bangladesh. He doesn't even debut in his position that he scored the runs in Super 50. That was allegedly the reason why he got in the team in the first place as a backup opener. They re-debuted him at number 3. How does that make any kind of logical, rational sense, Santokie, based on why he was called into the squad in the first place? And again, to me, I mean, we can move past Darren Bravo. It's not about Darren Bravo, but it does just show for me and showcase that where's the long-term planning? Like, where's the role definition? You don't just pick a man who's made runs as an opener and say, you go number 3. Oh, now you're going to open in the next match. And Carty, you're now our number 3, but no, now you're going to go down to number 4. Oh, no, now you're coming back to number 3. It doesn't suggest that a proper, rational, long-term strategy in approaching our most down bad version of the game.
Yeah, no, it didn't make any sense. Like I said, it made no sense to sacrifice your top scorer, you know, Carty, who's a long-term option for number 3, to sacrifice his position to fit Otley in the side when Otley's not even a number 3. And then to make things even more baffling, the final ODI, he came in as an opener. Obviously, Justin Graves averaged like 4.5 in the first 2. He's combined runs, nine runs in the first 2 ODIs. So Graves gets a drop. Otley comes in as opener, doesn't do well. So the wider question is, where does this leave our opening situation? Graves and Otley are both essentially flopped on this tour. Obviously, they didn't get much games. They've tried to fit Otley in. It hasn't worked. Do they persist with them for our next ODI series, whenever that may be? Let's just assume, for instance, King's not available. Where do they go from there? And then you've not even given Otley consistency as an opener to prove himself. So you're not doing justice. Like I said, it's not really I don't think Otley should have been in the squad, personally, if you're going to use it as a long-term platform to build an ODI side. But if you are picking him in the squad, at least give the man a run to justify his position as opener. You can't expect him to come in as a 3 and come in as an opener in different ODIs. And then, like I said, you're messing around Carty, who was the one shining light on the tour. So it's almost a self-destruction mode from Cricket West Indies here in terms of their selection. And you've got to wonder, what was their objective? What did they want to gain from all this? Because at the same time as you're putting Otley in the side, you're throwing in, we're 2-0 down, we're down bad. You're throwing in Teddy Bishop as well into the final ODI. For me, what was the point of that? Like, you're just, you know, if the squad's down bad, they're 2-0 down, you're going to make a man get a debut in the middle order, Teddy Bishop. I personally would have gone with a Tevin Imlach, who's been on tour since the Test series. At least just give him a game to get in that middle order. For me, it didn't make any sense to throw Teddy Bishop into this, bearing in mind the circumstances leading up to there. So the whole thing is a whole muddled policy match. There doesn't seem to be any strategy or any overriding philosophy. It's almost as if they're selecting as if ODIs don't matter, basically. As if, like, you know what, we're not going to the Champions Trophy. We've got 3 more years to plan for this. We're not playing ODIs after this for 6 months. Let's just kind of throw everything at the wall and see what sticks.
Do you know what? I'm glad you said that last line, because I reckon that might be true. Now, if we're properly balanced, and we defend Desi and Roland Butcher when he was selector, and Sammy if he was involved as well, right, in picking the squad, they didn't have many options available. Obviously, loads of people said they're not playing Mayers, King, Holder, whoever else off the top of my head, Akil Hussain, etc. So, in fact, let's actually go back. The squad that played England, just to remind people, the following players were in the England ODI squad and were not here for this series. Hetmeyer, King, Rutherford, Karaya. Actually, that was just it, to be fair, because Mayers wasn't in the squad. But that's still 1, 2, 3, 4 players. And obviously, we have to remember that Puran has basically retired from ODIs until we get to World Cup qualifiers again, right? So arguably, there's 5 first choice players, if you want to call them first choice, who weren't on this tour, who you would consider. Can't even include Akil Hussain. He wasn't in that England series, but you could consider players on the outside that would probably have strengthened this side, right? But that notwithstanding, even if you're missing X, Y, Z number of players, you still have to select a squad that runs parallel to that that vision of building to a World Cup. To me, you don't just pick a random, right, okay, they'll say it wasn't random, but you don't just pick a set of random players who where fans are watching and thinking, so how does this fit into the plan, right? We did a video before when the ODI squad was selected for Australia. We did a video, and those of you who are in the live right now, go back and watch it in the archives and tell me if I'm chatting nonsense. But we did a video, Santokie, and I went back and watched it. And within that video, we said stuff like, what's the rationale for Otley being in the squad, right? We said, what's the rationale for Bishop being in the squad? I always was concerned that Bishop is 20 years old, 21 years old. With respect to Teddy Bishop, Teddy's not even dominated his age group yet. He's not dominated his age group. He's not dominated under 21 cricket yet, much less. He's not dominating the academy scene just yet. You throw him into Australia, and for those of you who watch today, and this isn't about digging out Teddy Bishop, it's about the trauma that we inflicted on him today. His innings basically today went something like this: block first ball, duck under a spicy bouncer second ball, try to hook third ball and got all caught up and nearly got caught, bowled middle stump fourth ball, nowhere near the line of the ball. Ball had hit the stumps before his bat had come down. And I watched the innings unfold and I was like, who put this youngster, who thought it was a good idea to expose a 21-year-old youngster with barely any games under his belt in Australia? And yes, there's the sink and swim mentality, but it's not like when Tage was exposed to Test cricket in Australia and Tage had a lengthy first-class career that he's coming off the back of, right? Teddy Bishop's played about, 17 games, if that? And most of that in youth cricket. And we just said to man, go on, you go Australia, see what you can do. Like, build into 2027, to me, doesn't just mean, and this is where I come full circle to what you said, Santokie. It doesn't just mean throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. That's what and that's why I come back to your statement. It felt like that was the plan on this tour.
Yeah, definitely. I think you've hit the nail on the head. Teddy Bishop, to debut him, I know he averaged 60 odd for West Indies Academy in the Super 50, so he's come off form. But I don't get what learning experience he would have gained from this innings today in Australia, or this match in Australia. The only rationale is because he was selected purely for the ODI series. Maybe they thought, because we've flown him out here, like, we need to get him at least one game, like, if we're going to fly him all the way to Australia. That's the only rationale. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. Also, like, playing Kavem Hodge for the first ODI in the middle order and then just discarding him. It doesn't make any, like, what are you trying to learn? Like, what if you're a West Indies selector now, how can you make a fair judgment on Otley or Hodge or even a Teddy Bishop? Because you haven't given them a run of games and then you sort of just given them bits and pieces. And what are we trying to learn from this experiment? It doesn't make any sense. Like, I'd rather you give Otley 3 games or you give Hodge 3 games. So at least we've seen them in Australia, a series which doesn't have much weight behind it. It doesn't mean much to us. But it's a development tour for us in terms of developing the ODI side. So by giving people bits and pieces, you're not going to have any real outcomes. I don't know how the selectors can sit down now and say, all right, we learned this about this player, we've learned that about this player, because they haven't given them a run of games. It didn't make any sense. They chopped and changed when all we needed was consistency. ODI, we're lucky we've got time in hand where we can give consistency to players, give them a run of games and see how they fare. So by chopping and changing the match, it just doesn't make any sense. It's a haphazard way of thinking. It's almost as if we've got a World Cup coming up in 5 months and we're just trying to see which players are in form or hitting momentum. So we'll give everyone a game and see what's happening. It just didn't make any sense, Mash. No real strategy behind it at all.
Before I come on the back of that, is it, again, because we've got to let's try and keep it completely down the line. Is it possible to maintain a strategy or build a consensus when so many players are missing from one series to another? Now, I would say yes, Santokie, in so much as it's about a philosophy, right? So if I think of like a football analogy, if I use Arsenal, whatever people, and obviously you hate Arsenal, Santokie, but let's just use Arsenal. No, we can use Spurs as well, though, because Angie's cooking at Spurs, right? Certain teams, no matter who comes into the team, The players know the philosophy.
Yeah.
My issue with this series was I couldn't tell what the philosophy was. So we came off the back of a really good ODI series win at home versus England, where it felt like we were cooking something, like we're cooking a new style. Yes, it's a lot of new players, but it felt like a backward step. And some people are trying to say in the chat, "Oh, but this series didn't matter." But it matters in so much as, so what's the conclusion then? When they sit down and evaluate, what's the conclusion they're drawing from this? When they now pick a squad 8, 7, 6, 5 months from now, when we go to Sri Lanka or whatever it might be, or an A-team tour, if there's going to be like a West Indies limited overs A tour, how do you decide if Graves gets another chance? How do you decide if Otley gets another chance? How do you decide if Teddy Bishop? What was their rationale and plan to sit down at the end and go, right, that player showed me something, or let's give him another 7 games? What did they learn, Santokie?
This is the thing. It's like, remember when England played the ODI series a few years ago against Pakistan and the whole squad got hit by COVID? I think Ben Stokes had to be an emergency captain. Every other player in the 15-man squad was a new player coming in. But they played in the same style because it had been ingrained into the culture of the team. Like, this is how we play, like very attacking cricket. So they all knew what they had to do. Like you said, Mash, what's the philosophy of this side? And let's say we play our next ODI series later this year. King comes back, so you got Afanase and King. Who are they picking as their backup opener at this point? Because what have you seen of either Graves or Otley to say, like, all right, they got given a run of games and neither managed to perform in what they were given? So I don't know what the strategy is. It'd be interesting to know how much of input Sammy had into all of, like, well, I'm guessing a large input into selection, but it'd be interesting to find out his rationale behind it all, especially bearing in mind that the lack of urgency in the ODI format when we do have the privilege to be able to give players a run of games in this side. But yeah, it was just modelled, and I just don't see what they would have learnt from this. I would rather have seen like a Hodge be given 3 games, man, and at least been able to say I've played 3 games, I've managed to do this and that, because otherwise we were down bad, but we didn't even learn anything from being down bad. It's like different players experienced being down bad for 1 or 2 games, but nobody had a clear run at it. So it just muddled and confused, and I feel that pretty much for the last 10 years, Mash, that's summed up our ODI philosophy.
Yeah, and this is before we even get into the fact that it felt like going backwards in time in that. And I mean, generally speaking, I've hated the Aussie commentary throughout all formats that we've played thus far. But I did think this morning, when I was in my down bad, sleep-stricken state, I did think, you know what, they've got a point, because the commentators kept saying, but I don't know which commentator it was, but they kept saying the West Indians don't even look busy at the crease. So he was like, they're hitting shots which you could run hard for one, it's a dot, or they're unable to manipulate strike to find that one run and keep the scoreboard ticking over. So I think it was in the second ODI. It might even have been in all 3 ODIs where there was significant partnerships, but partnerships where we were basically going at 2.53 runs and over. And when we couldn't, it was this classic thing, Santokie, where as our only way to get out of blocking and not rotating strike was to hit out, and then we got out. So it felt like a throwback ODI series where all of our kind of old failings were shown up again in that we couldn't find a way to just be busy and get moving, and get like. I mean, and there's all kinds of structural reasons for that we can and can't get into. But I do want to just throw this question at you. So let me, where's my feedback from the tour? Right. Carty, we've already bigged up. So big up Casey Carty, like you said at the top. He's finally seemingly been given this run to prove that he belongs. Got that 50 in the last ODI against England. Started off this series with an 88 and then backed up with a 40. So you kind of feel like Carty's stock has risen, and good for him. People will still moan about his strike rate, and probably rightly so, but good for him all the same. Let's go to Roston Chase and Santokie. Roston Chase averaged 32 with 150, the only other batter to get a 50 in this series. He took no wickets from 16 overs, economy 4.43. There were plenty of people in the Discord saying Chase needs to get dropped and it's time to now remove him out the side for Kevin Sinclair. Yes or no, Santokie?
I think Kevin Sinclair should be given a run in this ODI side. I don't necessarily know. If you're basing it on this series, Roston Chase, he done well as the second highest run scorer. However, if he's coming in as that all-rounder, he's not performing with the ball. It's the age-old Roston Chase question. What is he in for? What is his role? He sort of just slots in. But I think he does offer something with the bat, at least at the very least. So I don't think Roston Chase should necessarily get dropped, but I would like to see Kevin Sinclair come into the ODI side. I think he's got the skills which are transferable. However, I can understand why Cricket West Indies, bearing in mind his lack of cricket over the last 2-3 years, Kevin Sinclair, for various reasons, can understand why they want him to focus purely on red ball for now. I'd like to see Sinclair in, but I don't think you can say let's drop Chase. I think there are others in front of the queue in terms of getting the drop. Where do you stand on that, Mash?
I mean, Chase is just inevitable, isn't he? Every time, what I will give Roston credit for is every time it looks like Roston's about to hold that drop, he does something. Kind of like Jermaine Blackwood when Blackwood was in our test side. Every time you're inching closer, he gets a 50 or he gets 3 wickets in a match or whatever it might be. If Chase gets dropped off the back of this tour when he was the only other player to get a 50, I think that would be harsh. Now, obviously, again, I've always said that if West Indies is going to be a proper cricket team, we haven't got time for favours. And we ain't got time we shouldn't be looking at someone averaging 32 and taking no wickets and saying, yeah, well, they've done well enough. We should be ruthless and be like, that's not what we're looking for. We need someone who can do something better than that. But the problem is, Santokie, all the next players I'm about to mention to you were down tremendously bad. Hope was awful. Athanaze was awful. Graves was awful. Hodge got 1 game, didn't look good. Bishop got 1 game, looked awful. So Otley got 2 games, looked awful. So but if we're gonna cuss Chase, then everybody else has to get cussed out, not so. Where's the line?
Yeah, exactly. And if you look at the averages, Mash, I mean, we'll get through this down bad, horrendous. I think Greaves averaged 4.5, Otley 8, Romario Shepherd played 3 innings, averaged 2.33.
No, I'm finished now here.
That's got to be a record, man. Surely to complete 3 innings. Like not even as if he was stranded, not out. Man just completed 3 innings and averaged 2.3.
That's our number 7
His highest
batter,
score was 6, and he scored 7 runs in total.
Big number 7 bats averaging 2. No, allow me, please. Allow me, Cuz. Allow me. What's going on, Cuz?
Like I've not seen any. I can't remember. Someone will have to remind me the last time someone completed 3 innings. Like it wasn't a not out. They weren't injured, and they averaged 2.33, and they're number 7. Are you mad?
My eyes
absolute joke.
My eyes are stinging. Oh God.
Romario, you know what? Oh my gosh. And, all right, you mentioned as well, Shea Hope obviously averaged 15. Was it he got this one? He was LBW by Abbott, and there was it, I think it was the second ODI he got clean bowled by Hazelwood. He just struggled against the pace, and it's weird because you can say on one hand, like, all right, everyone struggled, so why should Hope be different? Like he at least he scored slightly more runs than some of the batters. However, we've become so accustomed over the last 4 or 5 years, Mash, that no matter how bad the team is performing, Hope is always at a certain level. Like you'll always get like a minimum 30, 40, usually push on and do like a well-worked century or something. So I guess it's by the own high standards he's set, Mash. This has to be a down bad tour for Shea Hope as well.
Yeah, I'm going to be very critical of Shea here. Part of me wonders how much Hope was affected by coming off. Which down bad league was he playing in? Bangladesh, I think. Yeah, right. Bangladesh. So Hope has come off the back of playing some nonsense bat up and catch T20 cricket in Bangladesh, right? And I think Shea got exposed on these wickets. If people watch back Shea's innings, all 3 innings, Shea was hopping and bouncing like a kangaroo at the crease. He never looked comfortable at any point in time. I think the pace unnerved him. I think the bounce unnerved him, and actually, I think the movement unnerved him. And every time I kept watching Shea, I was thinking, boy, if Shea does come back to Test cricket for that England tour and gets in the team, well, boy, Shea's in for some problems, because that moving ball at pace, he looked like he didn't like it. For years, we've been told that only Bravo and Bonner can't play pace in the Caribbean, but I'm seeing evidence that really and truly no one can play pace in the real proper quality pace and the moving ball in the Caribbean. So Shea was down bad, and there's no point in trying to pretend otherwise. But he's got so much credit in the bank that in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really mean anything. But I do just wonder, Santokie, if coming off the back of T20 cricket was not the right preparation for him to then come and play this ODI series. That today, for example, his shot to get out today was absolutely ridiculous. Hoiking across the line to a dead-eye straight ball. It looked, put it this way, if one of the dunce batters had done that, people would be cussing from here to thine kingdom come. Shea will give a bly, but it was absolute dunce cricket.
Yeah, and I think it's not even the format of T20. I think if Hope was playing in the SA T20 or the Big Bash, conditions obviously would mirror that you're facing in Australia. To go from Bangladesh, where it's spin heavy, certain style of batting, straight into this, it was never going to be the right conditions. However, I understand why Hope's playing the Bangladesh Premier League and any franchise league. Obviously, he's got an IPL deal coming up, and he'll want to make that World Cup squad, cement his place in the World Cup squad. So I can see why, because the World Cup's so near away. Home World Cup once in a lifetime. I can see why Hope's kind of put everything in to get into refining his T20 skills. It's come at the detriment of his ODI capabilities in the series. However, you could argue after that World Cup's finished, he'll go back to focusing on sort of the longer format of the game. So for me, I just see it as a short-term move from Hope, which obviously he's trying to get into the World Cup squad. So it is what it is with him. It'll be interesting to see, though, the makeup, what changes we do make, because we don't play an ODI series. As far as I looked at the Future Tours program earlier, and we're scheduled to play Sri Lanka, I think, after CPL, so like late October, early November, for 3 ODIs included in that tour, multi-format tour. However, I'm assuming CPL, I'm Super 50, might have started or might be around that period. So it'd be interesting to see sort of the timing of that, because then Super 50 would determine sort of who kind of gets into that squad as well. So I don't even know if it's worth thinking about, Mesh, who we could consider bringing in to the ODI squad, because a lot depends on what players are available. Like you said, we were missing quite a few players. If Holder, Puran, I'm assuming they won't be back. The likes of King, Akil Hussain, those kind of players, are they going to be back? Mayers, is he going to be available? So it entirely depends on how the schedule works at this point in time in terms of determining who plays for the ODI squad. And with not much at stake in ODI cricket for West Indies for the next 3 years, you can imagine most tours for the next year or so are going to see vast amount of players not choosing to commit to it.
Yeah, no, I guess you would. I mean, 1 week is a long time in West Indies cricket. So who knows what's going to be? Who knows who's going to be available 7 months from now? Like that's too far away to make any kind of bold predictions about who will still be in form, who will still be available, etc., etc. Anything could happen 7 months from now. So actually, that's a really instructive point, Santokie, to not get too deep into drop this man, drop that man, because who knows who's even going to be available to play by the time you get to that Sri Lanka series. But certainly there are hold on a minute. Karis says 170 people on the live, 28 likes. Yeah, you lot doing us dirty. You lot never want to smash up the like button, you know. You got me on my deathbed here, and you lot don't want to press like. Give me at least one little like before I have to go and take some more medicine. But yes, Santokie, I think it's I think we shouldn't get trapped by saying, right, this man can never play for West Indies again, because fundamentally we just don't know what the situation will be in 7 months' time.
Yeah, and I think that sums it up well, Mesh. Never a dull day in West Indies cricket, so who knows what's going to happen. A lot depends on sort of what T20 tournaments are being held around that time, sort of everyone's situation. October is when the new central contracts for the next year get announced, so we have to see kind of where everything is. So there's no point even trying to speculate kind of in terms of the ODI squad. But as I said at the top of the show, Mash, T20 start on Friday. Full strength West Indies side, you know, Dre Ross, Pura and Holder, they're all flying out to Australia to take part in that. And that's something which we can be more analytical about in terms of our analysis. Because there's a World Cup coming up, it's vital to kind of see what performances are stacking up, how they're playing. You'd expect a much more competitive series in that format just because we are going full strength and you got that motivation of the World Cup coming up. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see. And the extra narrative for West Indies fast bowlers like an O'Shane Thomas, you've got Shamar Joseph and Obed McCoy lurking in the background, ready to get a call up as well. So a late call up to the West Indies side potentially for the World Cup. So there's a lot of narratives in there, and we'll be back to analyze that T20 series at some point once it starts on Friday.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting. Just a word of caution before that T20 series for those trying to draw an immediate parallel between what happens in that series and therefore the World Cup. We must remember, and this doesn't mean it's a disadvantage. If anything, I'd say it's an advantage for West Indies. The pitches that we play on in the World Cup will be completely different to what we're about to play on in Australia. The ground dimensions will be completely different to what we're about to play on in Australia. People may or may not have remembered that the last T20 World Cup, we went to Australia for that round one stage and lost to Ireland and lost to Scotland and got ourselves trapped into a philosophy of thinking we could just clear the boundary rope on Australia pitches, and got found out again and again and again as players just got themselves out playing bat up and catch, getting holing out in the deep. So the type of cricket, I know Sammy and Rovman Powell have said we want to go back to our natural style of game. I hear that, but that natural style of game may not suit Australian conditions. So what will be quite interesting to me, Santokie, is how well we adapt to. So what it's more testing for me is our adaptability rather than quote unquote preparation for the World Cup per se. But the squad couldn't be any stronger than the one that's been picked.
Yeah, I think if you're looking for direct preparation, as you said, there's probably the most opposite in terms of conditions to what you'll find in the Caribbean. I think it's probably important for us to build on our successes in last year, you know, away in South Africa, wins against India, wins in England. If we can manage to get a win against Australia in Australia, that will give unprecedented confidence to the players. And this is the last, by the time we play South Africa, the next bilateral series, the World Cup squad would have been picked. So this is essentially the last one. So like you said, Mash, I don't think this has a direct correlation between like direct preparation for the World Cup, but I think it will be a massive confidence booster if we can get a result. And I think Australia are going to have like Stark, Cummins, Hazelwood. So again, facing those players who you're going to face in the World Cup is always going to be good. So it'd be interesting to see how that goes. And Sammy's obviously already talked about the PSL and the IPL also being ways for players, you know, to get into that T20 groove, build up their momentum. So there's a lot of, even though West Indies aren't playing much T20 bilaterals before the World Cup, there's a lot of T20 cricket for most of the squad. So yeah, we'll be analysing what takes place in Australia in the T20 series over the coming days. But Mash, I know you're down bad. You've been up for a good nearly 20 hours now. How do you want to? I'll let you wrap it up with a summary of this ODI series and what you've had to witness.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, after 3 days in 3 matches in, it felt like 5 days, and getting up at 3:30 for matches I knew that we would get licked down in. My only departing conclusion after those 3 big defeats in the ODIs was that we are still down tremendously horrible and horrid and bad in the ODI format. Yes, there was that ODI win versus England, and yes, we got that little high. But what I saw in this ODI series was that strip away the top layer of West Indian players, it's a bit questionable about what we've got stacking up underneath. But you know what? We keep rallying all the same, Santokie, because that's all we can do. And I think the last thing I'll just say, people, because we have to rally, the down bad cricket doesn't stop here. Because tomorrow It's the start of the West Indies 4-day championship. Jamaica Scorpions versus Windward Island Volcanoes. CCC versus Barbados Pride. Those 2 games will be in Jamaica. The Leeward Islands Hurricanes versus the West Indies Academy, and Guyana Harpy Eagles versus Trinidad and Tobago Red Force. Those latter two games, will be in St. Kitts. Depending on where you are based, people, all of those matches will be streamed live on YouTube, on the West Indies YouTube page. Some of you might need VPNs to be able to access it, depending on what country you're in. But if you really want to get down bad and you really want to show your dedication, start tuning into those matches from about, I think usually it's like 2 p.m. UK time or 3 p.m. UK time to watch some 4-day cricket, because it will be quite instructive ahead of the England tour in the summer. So the cricket doesn't stop, people. Make sure you're connecting, logging in, so on and so forth. On your way out, before we just say goodbye, please do like, share, subscribe. Oh, Santokie, I didn't even say. Ladies and gents, I just want to say thank you to all of you who have been on the journey with us. Whenever you started the journey, I think it was at the end of last week, I got a notification from YouTube that we had passed 1 million total views on YouTube, which I messaged Santokie the other day, and I said, you know what? And I said to Santokie, you know what? We actually have to big ourselves up here, because we've done this with no sponsorship, no real cosign per se. We're not living in the region. We've literally built this from scratch and tried to create a medium that brings raw, honest, intelligent analysis of everything West Indies cricket. I still think, and I always say to Santokie, I do not believe that there is another platform that covers everything like we do. Girls, boys, women's, men's, academy, A-team cricket, regional cricket. Santokie, we've done it all these last 4 years. Every stakeholder there is to get on the show, we've got on the show. Johnny Grave, Kishore Shallow, Ricky Skerritt, Jimmy Adams, Shimron Hetmeyer, Kyle Mayers, Shay Hope, Brandon King, Chris Brabazon, Haley Matt. Santokie, hey, Santokie, you know what? We need to pat ourselves in the back, you know. We've been out here. But we're still building, you know.
Yeah, and I think when we started this podcast, considering West Indies were considered quote unquote small nation, and like you said, we're not even based in the Caribbean, for us to kind of get 1 million views in YouTube Mash, I guess without sounding too egotistical, it's a reflection on the quality that we produce on a consistent basis about West Indies cricket. And like you said, I don't think there's a platform that analyzes all aspects. Yes, you might get shows that focus on the headlines, you know, when we win at the Gabba or like when we lose today, but in terms of all aspects of cricket and having all stakeholders on the show, I don't think there's a podcast. I don't think there's many cricket podcasts for any country that sort of deals with everything in this manner. So thank you for everyone who are supporting. We know a lot of you in the live chat are regulars. It's always good to see and hear from familiar faces. So keep up the support, and the road to 2 million views starts from now, Mash, I guess.
100%. People are saying why we haven't got Holder on Santokie, but you done know Holder ain't done nothing for you. So until that happens, we'll have to wait to get Holder on. But listen, people, thank you so much as ever for joining. We got some more content coming in the next few days, so keep locked in. Farosh says we're still waiting on that. Yeah, what happened to that, Santokie? What happened to that? Why don't walk back up? The people said that you joined and then just disappeared.
That was a down bad. That's the down bad moment of the year. Like I think you were down bad, and you were like, "Yo, listen, like I'm tired. I'm going to bed." So I was like, "Let me try." For those that don't know, I'm probably the worst person in the world for technology. So I tried to figure out what to do. Started the stream. Started all good. I was talking, giving a big speech. I'm hearing bare comments saying, "We can't hear you. We can't hear you." So these times I'm trying to figure out like what's happened to the sound. I'm clicking like the sound buttons on here. I can't figure out what to do. So after about 2 minutes of it, I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna have to jump off, and it just cut off. And then at that point, I was like, I'm too down bad now to jump on again and start another one. So one day you will see the Santokie stand-up monologue by myself live one day soon. whenever Mash is down bad that he can't come on live.
100%. That time might be soon, people. I'm sure you've been able to pick up in this show that I'm absolutely down horrendous. But listen, we've been the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. We'll be back soon with some more content. Thank you as ever for joining. On your way out, like, share, subscribe, all of that. And if you're going to be watching those regional games tomorrow on YouTube, we'll probably see you in some of those live chats there. So see you all soon, people. Thanks as ever. Good night.
We rule the cricket world. Now the rule seems coming.
Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans.